I think there's also a very subtle change going on, and that is with the new generation. The new generation won't put up with the management style that's permeated the last century, the management style around control. They won't put up with it, neither they should, and managers will need to take account of that.
What do I mean with new ways of management, new ways of leadership? I think management has been very much based on routines, exploitation, doing more of the same. And a manager has developed a certain knowledge area, and the first couple of months there are some new things, but improvisation is very much limited. It's more exploitation of existing routines.
Managers, as we have seen them up to now, they will disappear together with the big organizations. Well, or maybe there will be some organizations, things are not 100%. There will be some big organizations still left, so there will some managers, but not that managers as we see them, as everybody calls himself a manager. No, there will no managers.
Well, if you see, for example, in Western Europe, we see that in the last 10 years, now we have, I think, 10 or 15% less managers than we had 10 years ago, due to the fact that more and more people can manage themselves. For example, in the Netherlands, we have, on a population of 16 million people, we've got 1 million freelancer, flex workers now. So that's quite a lot. So all these people need less managers.
Self-organization means that the initiative and the knowledge of the knowledge workers is really activated. And that means that it requires a totally different role for the managers.
It's very likely that we will have different structures, that we will have less management, and that we invest more and more in people than we invest in machines and etc.
Of the idea that it only matters about the CEO. I worked for IBM for a number of years, and the man who ran it there was a man named Lou Gerstner. So when he retired, he wrote a book about his years at IBM, and it was always, I did this, I turned the firm around. 350,000 people worked there. What were they doing? That's a lot of people. So we have this cult of individuals. That's exactly wrong in terms of how we incent people, how we direct them, how we work with them. Knowledge is social, and you have to strengthen the social bonds by space, by networks, by technologies. In some ways, that's a much better use of management time and resources.
I think probably now more than ever, because of the access that people have to leaders through the technologies and other fronts, it becomes even more important that they find ways to make sure that they're pushing decision rights down and not being in a kind of a controlling mindset at any level, or it'll slow work even more than it did in days gone by.
Well, management in the old-fashioned sense of command and control, that's outdated. I think the modern-day management should be somebody who's facilitating, who enables collaboration, who brings the resources and coaches and trains what have you, but it's not on top. But the modern manager is the guy who's sitting on the bottom and have the organization flourish.
I would think the role of managers would be, perhaps more like accountants or keeping track of things, but I think it'll decrease in importance versus creativity, versus real leadership, a type of intellectual leadership, which you could find again in universities, in the creative fields, things along that way. I mean, Steven Spielberg at Hollywood doesn't have to say, I'm the manager. People look up to him because he can produce these creative films.
So the manager really becomes much more of a facilitator, a coach, somebody who tries to remove impediments to successful work activities than somebody who is telling people what to do or supervising every one of the steps.
Top management roles will become those of boundary managers. Not looking down and telling people what tasks to do and managing them, but looking at the boundary of the outside world, seeking new opportunities. And when that happens, how can they then pull together these Hollywood model teams for new projects? IBM calls them EBOs, emerging business opportunities. An emerging business opportunity, someone can put that forward. If they get enough backing, they'll end up backing it and financing it, putting the money behind it.
The pursuit of small-scale opportunities that can scale very, very rapidly proof of concepts and tapping into new trends that may start very small but be the beachhead into something that could be enormous for an organization and then could disappear in a year and a half. But the companies need to be ready to and flexible enough and aggressive enough to pursue those very, very quickly when they arise and then be ready for the next thing.
What does make a difference is leadership. Leadership at the top, but also leadership at frontline managers. And managers do make a difference, but it's not anymore command and control, because we don't have to do with traditional production workers, we have to do with future knowledge workers that have a huge potential to innovate and renew. So the future leader should be very open for new ideas and should try to accelerate these ideas into feasible innovations.
Well, I'll give you a positive example. When Jack Welch at GE, who's a very big advocate of individualism, just what I'm talking about, but I've been told by a number of people who really knew GE well that when someone came to him and talked about an innovation that occurred, he'd right away say, who else have you told about this? Make sure you tell these other groups about it. He was constantly trying to make sure anything new and useful that came into the organization, big firm like GE, was spread around. That would be a perfect example. And that began to spread. Once he said that, it becomes contagious. It spreads around.
There is too much a tendency to stay high above the pie, to sit in a helicopter, making grand statements about process and process redesign and process outsourcing. And that is not going to work if you don't really know what's happening on the shop floor.
Leadership has a very important role, because as a leader you have to lead your staff into the next step. You do not have to tell them what they have to do. But you have to lead them and to guide them, which means you have to step down, you have to understand the processes, you have to understand the work that these people are doing, and you have to help them. Then they will work with you.
That front, to me, that's turned out to be it was a surprise, to be honest. Years and years ago, I was in a major consulting firm and doing a study. I was very interested in what their high performers did, what their networks looked like. And one of the partners stopped me in the office and he said, "I don't think," he said, "we're all smart here. You know, we all know a lot, and this is, you know, one of the blue chip firms out there." And then he said, "What I think distinguishes our high performers is that they create buzz or enthusiasm around them. It's not that they're a couple of points of IQ smarter than others, but that they create this enthusiasm. They get partners on board, clients on board with what they want to do." And so we mapped that. We looked at this idea of energy in networks and seeing to what degree does that drive innovation or be associated with high performance. And you find it's unbelievably predictive of the high performers. But it's literally 4 times of all the predictors we've seen that put people in the top 20%. I think it's a central function of leadership as we go forward, is that ability to create engagement when you're not there staring at people day in and day out.